Hello, everyone. Glad you could make it to the day of security. I attended last year, I believe, and I had a great time. So I'm glad I can present to you guys today and hopefully help you learn a little more about sock puppet accounts. So today I'm talking about how sock puppeteers use social media to extract information about you and how they can use that against you. So in this presentation, I'm going to cover what sock puppets are, go over a few definitions that I use in the presentation, cover two main uses for them, address how these affect you, how they can be used against you and a company that you work for, and then jump a little bit into creating a sock puppet account and a few of the factors that you want to consider when creating that. So a little bit about me. I'm a student at Dakota State University going for my bachelor's in network and security administration. And I've also won the Open Source Rising Star of the Year for 2021 based on my work with sock puppet accounts. I've also spoken to a few security groups and conferences just talking about sock puppet accounts, what they are, and how to use them. So you might be wondering, sock puppets, are those hand puppets that you use to make plays? And if you're one of those people who thought that, you're not alone. That's what a lot of people that when I bring this up, when I said, hey, I did a research project on sock puppets, they're confused, right? They're like, what is this about? And a lot of people don't know this term, and that's okay. I'm here to walk you through what it is and just explain a little more about that. Okay, so we're just going to jump right into defining sock puppets. So sock puppet cobbler, you might be wondering, where does that come from? Well, first it came from the sock puppet accounts, and then in spy terms, a cobbler is a creator or forger of identity documents. So I thought that played hand in hand with what I'm talking about. A puppeteer is someone who uses sock puppet accounts and uses them for their own benefit, whether that's malicious or benign purposes. And I'll be talking a little more about how you can do that. A malicious actor is someone who threatens through any means to harm the security of an individual or company for their own purposes, whether that be monetary or they're intending to harm their target. And disinformation, I'm mostly defining this because it gets confused a lot with misinformation. Disinformation is false or sort of hazy information that is designed to deceive someone and spread deliberately to deceive someone. So sock puppet accounts are alternate accounts on social media platforms. You can also think of them as just another account you're using that's not necessarily under your name, right? It's either pretending to be someone else or just pretending to be someone that isn't you. And a lot of times they're used for spreading propaganda or disinformation. And, when people want to spread that, they don't want it just to be one person or a few people. They want it to seem like there's a lot of people who believe in this. So that's why they use bots or other accounts that aren't their own to spread this information. Another reason is when you're investigating someone, say if you're in digital investigations or online investigations, you don't necessarily want the person you're investigating to know that you're looking into them. Social media platforms are designed to track you and rat you out to people. LinkedIn, for example, it will tell you if someone has viewed your profile, and if you have premium or other benefits, it will tell you who. And as an investigator, you don't want people to know that, you're looking into them, even if they're not an actual suspect, even if they're not have actually committed a crime. You want to stay as far away from looking like someone who shouldn't be looking at their profile is looking at them. And that's how you create distance between you and your target. Any social media platform is designed to connect you to someone else. So even if it doesn't explicitly tell you, hey, someone's looking at you, you'll show up in their recommended. And if you're not in their specific field, it can come across as suspicious that you're looking into them. So two main uses for sock puppet accounts are, as I mentioned before, spreading information. That's with propaganda or disinformation. Spam bots, that's not as intently malicious. It's still malicious, but it's not specifically crafted to have a certain appearance, or it's not supposed to attack someone specifically. As far as collecting information, that's really where my expertise comes into play. So for passive reconnaissance, open source intelligence, that's where people are scraping data. That's where they're getting information that you have out there that's publicly available and that they can then use against you. As far as active reconnaissance, that's scarier. It goes into the human intelligence side, and that's contacting a target, following them, contacting someone they know, a friend or family member, and just trying to get information that you wouldn't normally have publicly available. And the reason I don't talk about this as much is because it does get into an illegal side, right? Because you're contacting someone under another name, pretending to be someone that you aren't in order to get information. So it does violate a lot of expectation of privacy that way. And that's why I don't recommend using this unless, legally it's allowed. So here's a quick example of a sock puppet account I created for a capture the flag competition. And if you'll notice really quick, something to know about amateur sock puppeteers is that a lot of times they create the account within the last 2 to 3 years. If you'll notice the join date on Twitter, right? And then they don't have either a lot of followers or posts. And that can give away a lot about that they didn't put enough time into it. Sometimes they created that account just for that purpose. And if you are, really caring about your own security, you kind of want to look into these things and make sure if someone's trying to connect with you, if they're trying to send you a friend request, that these signs aren't all there. And of course, that's not the only way that they could be a sock puppet account. You can buy all of those things. So don't just go based off of that, but off of other things as well. So why do you care? Well, as a company, you want to care about your reputation risk management. People can leave fake reviews about your product, about your company, about any services you provide, claiming that, it's a scam or that you have bad customer service. A lot of these things that, right, in this day of information on the internet, a lot of people aren't going to check into. If there's an article claiming, okay, this company is a fake, a lot of people will be less likely to use your company or your services because there's something out there claiming that it's not a good idea. And then on the scarier side, right, on the exploitation side, they can grab a lot of personal information, a lot of information about your company, about the employees that you don't necessarily know is out there or that you think is private, but they can see it. And you think it's benign, but they can also use it to create convincing spear phishing emails or just tactics in general. So a really quick, simple spear phishing example that I've seen used at a company that I worked for is they'll scrape your social media and website, just getting as much information about the company, about who's in it as possible. And one of the big things they're looking for is your company's email address structure, whether that's first name dot last name dot first name, or any combination of those. And they really just want that structure. Next, they'll compile a list of who they think works there. If you have a company directory, if you have anything online that will tell them, hey, this person works here, such as LinkedIn. If you have a company listed that you're working for, they can find out who works for that company, right? Maybe they have past employees, but they'll compile a list of people they think are employees and then send out an email blast. And it doesn't have to be anything specific. They just want to send an email so that they can get a reply saying, okay, sometimes you get those bounce backs from emails that don't exist, right? So they want to see which emails do exist, right? Which ones are actually being used, and sometimes more importantly, which ones have out of office vacation responders. And sometimes those can tell you a ton about what's going on. They can give you an email signature block. They can give you how long that person is out of office. They can give you who the next report is, their phone number, their email, and you can map out a company structure that way. So some of those things you're conditioned to believe, okay, I need to share this out of courtesy, and those things attackers can use against you. After that, they'll create a more convincing spear phishing email, and then they can send it out. One of the ones that I saw that was, a more of a spear phishing email was that they sent out an email pretending to be one of the C-suite executives or one of the people that is your direct report. And they said, hey, I really need you to do a task for me. Send me your phone number, right? A lot of times when we're looking for spear phishing, we're looking for click on this or download this. We're not looking for email me your phone number, right? So some of those things they work on, okay, how can we seem like a trusted entity? So that was how you can be targeted as a business. But what about you as a professional? Well, sock puppet accounts can also be used to target you in your profession. Recently, Google and Microsoft had reports about sock puppet accounts being used to target their cybersecurity researchers. And, you might think, okay, well, maybe that's just in cybersecurity, but they can be used to target any profession. And what these sock puppet accounts did is they created websites, they created blogs, and they basically pretended to be security researchers themselves. They created their profiles, and I can go through them here in a bit, but then they ingratiated themselves into the community by following high-profile people, retweeting, reposting those posts, and also creating their own content claiming to be, okay, I just found out this exploit, I'm working on this exploit right now, just pretending to be one of the community. And so if we'll look at this LinkedIn sock puppet example, right, we'll see, okay, they have those pictures, they have, one of them has a pretty generic background, and you'll see that a lot with sock puppet accounts because it's super easy, and a lot of people do still use really generic backgrounds for their headers, right? One of the things you'll also notice is that they have quite a few connections. I mean, 87 connections is on the low side, but I've seen real people with less. So again, that's not the only way you can tell if a sock puppet account is indeed a sock puppet account. With the Twitter ones, it's sometimes easier to tell because it will show you their join date, right? If we look at these two, it's January and February of this year. And right, they have not very many followers, and I'm sure they would have more posts than you would expect them to, but that's again because they're trying to look like legitimate people in the security industry. So here with these ones, we'll also see that they have a lot more followers. They also have recently joined in the past 2 to 3 years. Again, that's not the only tip-off sign, right? There's people all the time who are new users who are joining legitimately. But again, that's a factor that you can look into if someone has created it recently for this purpose. But again, followers, you can buy followers. People can also think you're legitimately, like they're pretending to be, in the security industry and follow you based on that. So that's not the only way. This was a recent case of a defense contractor employee who was targeted by this sock puppet account, right? And it looks a lot more legitimate than a lot of the other ones did, right? You have a lot more realistic profile photo, and then you have the header, which again makes you think this is a real person, right? A lot of sock puppet accounts don't have a header with them as the person. So this sock puppet account targeted them pretending to be, I think, a yoga instructor, and would send them, workout workout schedules and plans, and one of them they found out was a malicious file. So, right, people when they, connect with you on the internet, they can be sock puppet accounts. It doesn't have to be just someone randomly connecting with you. Someone who has, and sometimes you'll see that someone will say, "Hey, I'm in this circle that you're in. I think we should be friends." They can be a sock puppet account, right? So let's jump a little into creating a sock puppet account. How easy is it, and what can you do to do that? So a few factors to consider when you're creating a sock puppet account is how anonymous do you want to be? And something that you really want to consider is anonymity, anonymity and privacy are not the same thing. And a lot of people really confuse the two. But anonymity is when people can see what you're doing, but they don't know who it is. They don't know it's you. Whereas with privacy, they know it's you, but they can't see what you're doing. And since, like we mentioned before, people can kind of see what you're doing on the social media platforms because they do have those trackers, they do have algorithms to rat you out, to connect you with people. You want to care about your anonymity. And it's also called managed attribution in more of the intelligence field. And that's just managing, okay, how much do I care if someone links this account back to me? Because, if you're doing some really serious stuff, if you're investigating dangerous criminals, you don't necessarily want that to be linked back to you. But, if you're just saying, looking into a potential candidate or, something less on the scale of dangerous, then you might not care as much if it's linked back to you. And then another thing you want to consider is how persistent do I want to be on this account? There's throwaway accounts and then there's persistent accounts. And throwaway accounts are when you just spin up a quick profile, which a lot of people in the information security field do. They spin it up and they say, okay, I don't really care if this gets deleted. I just need to make it quickly, get my information, and get out. As far as persistent accounts, those are ones that people create to last long. They create it to make sure if, say, they have a long-term investigation going, they want to keep using that profile. They don't want to get deleted or, as the term is in the industry, burned, right? You don't want your account to get burned. You don't want someone to think you are a fake profile. So those are some things you just want to consider when you're creating a sock puppet account. Then there's two account types generally that accounts fall into. There's a persona, which is usually someone's personal account, right? You see their life updates, you see, oh, I'm going to this, oh, I'm going to that. And you expect it to be a real person. And with this account, you have to put a lot more effort into their backstory, into making sure when you post something, it does not contradict something else you posted, because you're supposed to be a person, right? You're not supposed to say, hey, my favorite food is lasagna, and another day my favorite food is Cheerios. Even, you can change those, right? People can change, but generally you don't want to post conflicting information that makes it look like you're a fake account. The other one is an avatar, and this takes less work because people generally see it as, okay, I'm not expecting it to be one person or a certain type of person. So these are usually like parody accounts, like, your dog's account, or something that isn't specifically linked to one person. I mean, people know that it's run by a person. I mean, dogs can't use Twitter yet, I think. But they generally assume, okay, someone's there, but it's not a specific person. So layers of separation. And this is where those managed attributes come back into play, right? How anonymous do you want to be? You can add these layers or remove them depending on how private you care about being. So usually I have a dedicated computer, I have a virtual machine for the sock puppet, and then an email address for each single sock puppet, and then a VPN depending on, of course, how you want to set it up. And then depending on what you can get away with, you usually want a burner phone or a phone that is not connected to you that can serve as your sock puppet's phone. because with Facebook, Instagram, a lot of them don't accept voice over IP numbers, which a lot of times are what people go to when, okay, I want another phone number, but I don't necessarily want to pay for a physical phone or a physical phone number. And with a lot of the social media networks, they don't allow you to sign up using those. So that's something you have to consider when you're creating a sock puppet account. So a simple setup that I go through with creating it is I set up my computer, I create a profile document just covering, okay, here's all the information about my sock puppet. Here's all the passwords, here's all the accounts that I have on different platforms. And, if they have security questions, here's what my answers are. Then I make sure I set up my virtual machine. I change the time zone, I change location. I change a lot of things just because with fingerprinting, which is another thing I could go into, you want to add as much gray matter, I guess, between what you're doing and what your sock puppet is doing. Then I create an email address, and after I create the email address, then I start setting up social media profiles. I make sure I have the profile picture, the banner, the description all ready to go before I actually set up the social media account. And after that, it's just aging. I log in around the same time. I like, share, retweet, repost, just make it look like I'm a usual user. And then as far as not getting burned, right, that's something mostly with the system, but sometimes looking like a real person. Basically, it's sometimes hard when you're pretending to be someone else, but you just want to act like a normal person. Just a regular user scrolling through, liking things, and commenting. And I think I'm running out of time, so I will just skip that. Example autoresponder for anyone who was thinking of changing their autoresponder. Resources, I have a white paper published about this. I also have my project published, which goes more into depth about creating these. And, if you need a bunch of resources on how to create them, I also have that in those white papers and that project. So any questions? I know that was a lot to cover, and I might not have covered it as much as I would like to, but if you have any questions. And if you have any questions later on about any of the material I've covered, feel free to reach out to me, and feel free to send me a question, say, hey, I'm having trouble with this, or if there's a specific scenario that you have, just let me know about that. And if you want to connect with me, I forgot to put my Twitter on here, but I'm also on this platform here. You can reach out to me there. You can connect with me. You never know if something's going to come up later on where you need, something about sock puppets, and I'm always available to answer questions or any concerns. Other than that, well, I had a great time presenting, and I hope you really enjoyed or at least learned something from the presentation. Like I said, if there's anything I can help with, anything about sock puppets or any information that you need to know, I'm available. So thank you for your kind comments, and I really hope you guys have a great day of Security Conference.